Welcome to True Talk on WMNF, where we dive deep into pressing political and international issues shaping our world today. I'm your host, Ahmed Bedier, and last week I traveled to Chicago to attend the Democratic National Convention. If you've been listening and paying attention to our show, for the past 10 months, the ongoing genocide in Gaza has been the top issue that's weighed most heavily on our minds. As I walked into the DNC, I was searching for any sign that Kamala Harris, the newly nominated presidential candidate, might bring a change or divert from Biden's policy when it comes to Palestine and Gaza. In the convention halls, there were some visible signs of support for Palestine. Delegates wearing Palestinian keffiyehs, the scarves, buttons that read, quote, Democrats for Palestinian Rights, and T-shirts that read ceasefire delegate, meaning they're calling for a ceasefire. But there were few. The real disconnect was between these delegates and the party leadership, as well as the message coming from the stage. The DNC even featured an Israeli couple speaking about the events of October 7th, calling for the release of Israeli hostages. Yet, there wasn't a single Palestinian speaker or even an Arab American voice on that stage. Outside the convention, the streets of Chicago were alive with protests, and Gaza and Palestine were front and center on social media. But inside, the silence was deafening. Biden and Harris did mention a ceasefire, but in the same breath, they reaffirmed their commitment to defending Israel's right to exist. As of now, American weapons funded by taxpayers, us, continue to flow to Israel to carry out this ongoing genocide. Today's episode delves into these critical issues as I spoke with delegates and activists who are demanding that their party's leadership live up to their stated principles. You'll hear from Nadia Ahmed, a Florida DNC party leader and delegate, who, along with two other delegates, was attacked when they tried to hold up a banner during Biden's speech that read, Stop Arming Israel. We'll also hear from delegates of the uncommitted group or movement. These are Democrats who insist that without real policy changes, they can't mobilize their communities for Harris. They support Harris, however, they're not committed to campaigning for her. These conversations are vital as they reflect the growing tension within the party, a fight for the heart of the party. What does it mean to be a Democrat? Stay tuned for an episode that challenges the status quo and brings you voices demanding change.
Helen.
Okay, hi Helen, you're from a delegate from the state of Washington?
Yeah, CD7.
District, that means...
Congressional District 7.
And is this your first time as a delegate to a convention?
To the national convention, yes. I was a state delegate this year.
Okay, so I stopped you because I see that you're wearing a keffiyeh-looking thing that says Democrats for Palestinian Rights.
Yes.
So are you Palestinian?
I'm not Palestinian. I'm Jewish.
Okay, that's interesting. So why is a young Jewish person supporting Palestinian rights?
Well, I'm supporting human rights, and those happen to be Palestinian rights. But I am definitely here in the capacity as a Jewish ally because this isn't okay, and people are using the name of Judaism to perpetuate this atrocity. And I feel it's my responsibility to speak up and say that this isn't okay.
If you're hearing this beeping noise, we're actually in an elevator now. We're on our way to, I guess, a session or a room. We're in the McCormick area of the convention center. It's called the McCormick Place in downtown Chicago, where the DNC convention is being held. Today is Wednesday. So how are you being an ally by being here to Palestinians and Palestinian rights, or to oppose the genocide? I'm assuming you're opposed to the genocide in Gaza.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. In my capacity here, we have two uncommitted delegates for my state, and they're both Palestinian, and I am trying to, help them out wherever possible so that they're not alone, and I'm trying to use my voice as a Jewish person to, the advantage of the uncommitted movement to say that this isn't saying that sending aid to Israel, sending bombs to Israel is helping the Jewish people is not in my best interest, and I don't want this, and that we, don't want this to continue.
So do you think there's space, and do you think that the Democratic Party is receptive to these Palestinian voices?
I think that it's better than it has been in the past. We've had some slow movement, like this year. They had a panel on Palestinian human rights on the first day for the first time in history. But there are still roadblocks that we're having, and that is really disappointing to see. We're here in a peaceful capacity, and we just want to get the message out that, sending unconditional aid to Israel isn't okay. We need humanitarian aid in Gaza, things like that, and there's still a lot of work to do.
What do you think is the biggest obstacle within the party to stop arming, Israel, or to change the policy? Because now they've changed Biden. Biden is no longer the candidate. Harris is the candidate. Her words have been a little bit more sympathetic, but it doesn't seem that she's committed to changing the policy.
Yeah, so that's the thing that we need to see movement on, and I don't know 100% what that path will look like, but as delegates, what we're doing is we are, signing a letter requesting to meet with the Harris campaign, requesting to, have our demands met or listened to. And we want to get 500 delegates to sign on by Thursday to show that a lot of us, are interested in seeing a ceasefire. A lot of us want change, and we're here representing the voices of Democrats in the places that we come from. And across the country, 85% of Democrats are in support of a ceasefire. So we're, trying to represent that and be heard by the party.
85% of the party supports a ceasefire. Do you think the party is actually working hard to get a ceasefire? I mean, we heard it a couple of times from the stage this week about a ceasefire, but is it just lip service, or are they really working on it?
I think that they need to do more and communicate more about what their plans are. I mean, especially since Harris stepped up as the nominee. We need to hear what her plan is, because she's not Biden.
Okay. Yeah, continue. Yeah, she's not Biden, but...
She's not Biden, and we don't really know what she has to say. She hasn't said enough of what her plan is. Hey, Tamara.
Oh, hi. Hi, Tamara.
I'm in an interview.
We actually met on Zoom before, Ahmed Bedier, and she said you were...
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted your interview
it's okay.
with me, but I thought you might want to talk to her later.
Yeah. Okay,
sorry,
we'll catch
I'm sorry.
up. Thanks for introducing us. No, that's okay. I mean, it's being recorded. It's fine. So, it seems like the majority of the Jewish people, Jewish Democrats, are supporting what's happening in Gaza, or supporting Netanyahu's government and what they're doing. Do you find that that's the case?
I mean, I wouldn't...
Or at least the voices that are part of the party establishment.
Yeah. Well, the party establishment is different than just regular people on the street.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that's indicative of the Jewish experience overall. I would say that a lot of people are demanding a ceasefire because sending unconditional aid to Israel is not only harming Palestinians, it's also harming Jews.
Of course.
I would say a lot of Jews have critiques of Netanyahu's government, especially. I'll be honest, I find myself in a lot of spaces with Jews, but they're all ceasefire-friendly, pro-Palestine Jews. So I might not be the best person to ask because I don't really have my finger on the pulse of what's happening in mainstream Jewish communities right now. I tend to surround myself with other organizers.
Okay, so we're back at the McCormick Center, which is McCormick Place, a convention in downtown Chicago where the DNC is being held during the daytime, and in the evening they go to the United Center. And I'm speaking with a participant from the Minnesota delegation. What is your name?
My name is Dan Thomas Cummins. I'm a member of the Rules Committee from the state of Minnesota, elected on behalf of Uncommitted.
So what is Uncommitted?
So the Uncommitted national movement largely started from Michigan, where it was folks voting during the presidential nominating primary for uncommitted. Not every state has this option, but some do have an option of uncommitted rather than supporting a particular candidate. And they were doing so specifically to raise the issue of the war in Gaza right now and talking about the U.S. needing to do more to bring about a ceasefire through a policy change.
Are you Arab or Palestinian?
I am not, no.
Or are you Muslim?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so why did you choose to care enough about this issue to become an uncommitted delegate?
I simply care about this issue because I am disgusted when I see children being murdered on television or in any circumstance. I am vehemently anti-war. That's what got me involved in politics in the first place. I'm fairly young, but I did my first door knock for John Kerry when I was in second grade at age 7 because I disagreed with what we were doing in the war in Iraq. I knew that was built on a pack of lies at the time and needed to be stopped immediately. Unnecessary bloodshed is always a tragedy and should be stopped at any opportunity. So why I got involved here was simply to be part of the process of taking a stand as Democrats with my fellow Democrats in the state of Minnesota to say we need to do more to stop this, using the tools at our disposal to do that and put pressure on the administration to get it done.
Do you find that the Democratic Party is anti-war?
I think we should be the anti-war party. I don't know if that's always historically been our position. And certainly now there's certainly a lot of doubt about that, particularly from the neighbors that we in Uncommitted represent. Our neighbors turned out in the hundreds of thousands in Michigan and Minnesota and plenty of other states across the country to say we need this war to end. And we as Democrats want our party to stand forthrightly on the side of being anti-war and ending this war. So we know that there is a large anti-war coalition component within our group that's needed to secure a victory in November. And we want to make sure that we have a home for that group and that we can genuinely say that we are an anti-war party so that we can earn their votes. And so, of course, we can stop the bloodshed worldwide.
The uncommitted group, those that voted in the primary as uncommitted, in the states that allowed that, what was the total number of voters that chose uncommitted in the different states?
It was over 700,000.
So 700,000 voters, obviously not all of them in critical swing states,
right?
But in the swing states that allows uncommitted, do you know approximately the number? Yeah,
approximately 101,000 in the state of Michigan, at least, were the ones that voted that way. I know the state of Michigan is critical to winning this election in November. We even heard from former Congressman Andy Levin on Monday at our panel that we hosted, for a member from Michigan, who acknowledges that there is simply no path to victory for a Democrat in November without winning Michigan. And 100,000 voters was far greater than the number of votes by which Biden won in 2020 in Michigan. We need this critical coalition partner to be present and at the polls voting for our candidates if we want to win in November.
Okay, so what's the game plan for this? Now the primary's finished. So far, Biden has not listened to the uncommitted movement, has not necessarily done all he can to stop the ceasefire, to get a ceasefire.
Right.
What's the game plan? What's the strategy of uncommitted here at the convention?
Right. So the strategy is that while I think that the primary certainly elected us and put us in a position, gave us allocated delegate votes that were pledged to uncommitted to say, we're going to go and represent your values. Under the rules of the convention, under the call to convention, delegates are required to represent the sentiments of the neighbors who elected them to be here. And in doing so, we are here to represent their concerns, to say that we need to vote for someone who can actually make this happen, because we're not just here because the nomination's done. We understand that. We're here because we represent this critical partner of our coalition that's going to be needed to win in November. We can't possibly win without our folks coming to the polls, the folks that we represent. So we're here because we are representatives, we are a voice, we are visible in this space.
Okay.
And we're raising this issue with folks that we have here. We're talking to delegates about being ceasefire delegates, signing on to a letter. We have 250 signatures already from delegates. There are only 36 uncommitted delegates sent to the
that
National
represent
Convention.
the 700,000.
Right, thereabout.
And compared to how many delegates in total? Is it
4,800.
So you're basically less than 1% of the delegates.
That's correct. And so our goal is to get at least 10% of the delegates. Our goal is to hit at least 500 signatures. We're hoping for more, of course, that are going to be in favor of our ceasefire letters. Saying
what will that accomplish?
That will accomplish us. Our leaders met directly with Kamala Harris in Michigan when she visited Detroit a few weeks ago, and met directly with her and talked to her staff. And she said, we need to have a meeting.
Right.
And asked us to schedule a meeting with her staff.
And still, that meeting hasn't taken place, because I've been following this.
Yeah.
And also at that meeting, they said that she seemed sympathetic, but then the next day, her campaign put out a statement saying that, there's no arms embargo, that's not on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, for us, what we're looking to see is action and a policy change of some sort. Arms embargo is our ultimate goal.
Okay.
We want to see that happen because we want to stop bombs going to kill Palestinian children and civilians. That's our ultimate goal, is to stop the bloodshed. So whatever steps the U.S. can take, and there are many tools in the toolbox here that the U.S. can take that are not being taken right now, we need to see greater action in order for us to, one, stop the bloodshed, and two, be able to tell our neighbors who elected us, yes, you can genuinely vote for this person, because we're not going to have credibility if we go back to our neighbors who elected us and say, you need to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, when Kamala Harris is part of the administration that is currently sending weapons that are then falling on their neighbors, on their family members.
So if the party, Kamala Harris, doesn't do what you want her to do, which is call for an arms embargo, and to actually do everything they can to implement the ceasefire, are you guys not going to vote for Kamala Harris?
We're not saying that we as individuals are not going to vote against Kamala Harris or go vote for her. We're saying we're here to represent and be visible on behalf of the folks who we're not certain we can tell to go to the polls, or that they will go to the polls, or that we can genuinely ask them to go to the polls on behalf of Kamala Harris, who may sit this one out. And frankly, we can't afford to have that happen. So while, if things don't pan out the way that we're looking for them to happen.
Because now it's Wednesday. She's going to accept the nomination tomorrow. That's the end of this convention. And then uncommitted may walk away with basically nothing.
Our process does not end at this convention. Our group is still going to continue. We knew that meeting would likely not happen before the convention, so we're looking to continue to have that conversation.
But how long will you continue to be uncommitted? Because uncommitted is basically saying, okay, so is uncommitted the same as undecided?
I think it's an undecided vote, not who to vote for, but whether to vote and whether we're going to show up. I'm committed. I'm always a consistent voter. What the groups that we represent as delegates are folks who might not be.
Sorry if you're hearing some loud noises. We're actually at the convention right now in Chicago. I'm speaking again with one of the participants from the state of Minnesota. He is one of the people that is part of an uncommitted movement that has uncommitted delegates. What is your name again?
My name is Dan Thomas Cummins.
And how many? There's approximately
36 or
36 uncommitted delegates that are representing the over 700,000 voters that showed up in different states that allow something called uncommitted when it came to the primary. And they voted that way because they could not commit their vote to Joe Biden at the time because of his actions in Gaza.
I just did it. I know. I went 3 times. The first time I went with a student group from the University of Cairo and got in with that group. And that was my first time. It's kind of a unusual story that was the reason why I went, but regardless. So I went with that group, and we had people in our group who were not allowed in because they were Palestinian. But anyway, I went in, I spent a week being educated. One of the most profound, you guys, I don't even know if I can talk. I'll try.
What's the most profound?
Listening to John Ging. He was a military employee of the Irish military. He was in charge of UNRWA, UNRWA, and he basically educated us so well about how this was just a tinderbox waiting to explode. And mind you, this was 15 years ago. So anyway, after leaving Gaza the first time, I became super focused on the topic, just anything, bus campaigns in Portland to spread the message through Portland, boycotting, anyway, and I went back twice. I went back with Physicians for Responsibility, and I was able to do a presentation at the Islamic University of Gaza. I got to do a presentation to the nursing students.
Wow.
It was amazing. And then I went back again with Code Pink. One of my best friends, Mohammed Al-Jaja, a journalist in Gaza.
Just don't talk.
A journalist in Gaza is one of the journalists who's been killed, along with his wife and 2 children. That's why I'm here.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name because we started talking so quickly.
I was just Donna Boyd.
From?
Portland, Oregon.
15 years ago, you went to Gaza for the first time. Now you're here in Chicago at the Democratic DNC convention. Why did you come?
Because I am very devoted to this topic, and I am enraged that U.S. tax dollars funnels into Israel with no barriers, and that we are the ones who have the power to stop this genocide, and we don't.
How can our government or America stop this genocide?
And sending weapons to Israel, put sanctions on Israel.
And what activities are you doing here to ensure that happens?
I am just going along with any action that draws attention to the cause with the hope that maybe somebody will stop and listen.
Can you give me some examples of some of those actions?
I prefer not to, since I am standing here as an individual.
Oh, but you don't have to reference the organization. What type of organizations? What type of activities are they?
Disruption.
Okay. So do these protests and disruptions, are they effective, do you think?
You know what? I'm gonna keep hope going. I'm gonna keep hope alive. If there's no hope, then I wouldn't be here. It's my form of continuing my hope, because this is unbelievable. And my frustration is the fact that media here in the United States is so hobbled by the Israeli power that they have of media here in the United States that it's hard for good information to get out. You know, the average person on this topic is very poorly informed. And if Americans knew, that's a campaign, if Americans knew the story. I went to Gaza the first time 15 years ago, clueless to what I was getting into.
You're
I'm a
Caucasian woman, a nurse. You're not Palestinian. You don't look Palestinian.
No.
But you're devoted to this cause.
I'm devoted to this cause. I came out of there. Actually, I had a presentation where I would go around churches in Portland at that moment of time. How does an American white woman become a pro-Palestinian radical? How does that happen? So, what's
your definition of radical? Because they define some.
I think I think when you're doing protest and when you're doing bus campaigns, when you're doing anything loudly on this topic, you're a radical.
Those are things that are protected by the Constitution and free speech, right?
Yes.
I mean, these are things that people during the civil rights era did. But now, do you feel like the Democratic Party is receptive to your tactics?
Part of them. A lot of them. We stood out last night. We stood out last night at the entrance coming into the conference with our, I don't think I have one on me. Anyway, we were handing out.
Can you describe it?
Yes, it's information about the billions of dollars that is going into.
Like a leaflet. Okay,
leaflet.
What happened?
Most people didn't even want to look at you. Most did not want to look. Some would reluctantly. I had people say things like, I don't want to carry a piece of paper around. They were burdened by paper. Most people did not want to even make eye contact. They were. One man took it, rumpled it up. I'm Jewish, dropped it on the ground. Most people did. Most people.
So are you optimistic for the future?
If I wasn't optimistic, I wouldn't be here. I feel like I have to try.
Where are you getting all this money to do all this? Because according to Nancy Pelosi, at some point, you guys are being funded by Russia or something.
Well,
who's paying you?
China. I was just told. I just told us we were.
Right?
I am being sarcastic. This man just yelled at me that we're being funded by China.
Okay, but really, in reality, for people that are like listening to this, how are you funding all this travel and all your own money?
Yeah, I have the ability to do so. I'm an average white woman.
So instead of going on vacations and you're doing this.
Yeah, I do it all.
Okay, what was your name again for our listeners?
You are going to edit this, aren't you? There's a lot of mishmash in this. Donna Boyd, Donna Boyd.
Donna's mishmash. You filled in a lot of stuff here today. Thank you so much for being with us, and stay safe.
Yeah, you got that.
Did I get what?
That just sounds like a lot of.
That's you.
That was very good.
People want authentic voices.
Mind if I?
Okay, so now I'm joined with
Tamara Erickson.
Tamara, and where are you from?
Washington State.
So you're a delegate.
Correct.
You're a delegate for Biden, but now you're a delegate for Harris. So it seems like all the delegates that were for Biden transferred to Harris now.
Correct.
But you said you're a ceasefire delegate. What does that mean?
Yeah, so in Washington State, we had enough uncommitted votes to send 2 uncommitted delegates, the DNC. However, there are many more of us who believe that we need an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. And the way to achieve that is to stop sending bombs to Netanyahu and his far-right extremist regime. And so we are calling ourselves ceasefire delegates.
Since October 7th, our government, under President Biden, the Democrat leadership, they've sent so many weapons to Israel, which people are saying it's contributing to this genocide, it's funding, it's arming this genocide. Do you agree that there's a genocide in Gaza right now?
Yes, I believe that the indiscriminate bombing of innocent civilians in Gaza has led to a genocide of the people who live there.
So this is something, you might expect from the Republicans, from Trump. This is happening under a Democratic president. How did that make you feel?
Well, I think that a lot of people think that we need to continue to send bombs to Israel in order to support the Jewish Israelis who live there. And it's a myth. There are groups like Standing Together, which is a grassroots organization of Jewish Israelis and Palestinian citizens in Israel who have been leading marches with hundreds of thousands of people in Israel who are demanding a permanent and immediate ceasefire as the way to bring the hostages back home.
But Jewish groups in America, for example, like AIPAC and Democratic Majority for Israel and others, think that more bombs and more weapons should go to Netanyahu. Do you agree? Is that the prominent voice that we're hearing here in America, or are there other voices?
Yeah, I mean, in Israel, Netanyahu has a coalition government.
Right.
And the far-right people in his government think that after this war ends, that Israel should occupy Gaza and continue to build settlements in Gaza. Whereas the more moderate people in his Likud party think that we need a Palestinian government in Gaza, that it is not sustainable for Israel to occupy Gaza, and that they would lose credibility with their international allies. Mm-hmm. And so the minute this war ends, Netanyahu's coalition government falls apart. And so he is continuing this war for his own political survival at the expense of the 9 million Palestinian and Jews who live on that land.
Yeah, because he keeps saying that, and we hear it here, that Israel is defending itself in it. And we hear even from Kamala Harris and Biden that Israel has the right to defend itself. But are they defending themselves by dropping so many bombs in Gaza?
Yeah, I think it is important for people to understand that Netanyahu is a far-right extremist, and that he is not doing this for, with the benefit of Jewish citizens in Israel. He is only out for his own political survival. Palestinian liberation and Jewish safety are intertwined. We cannot have one without the other.
So until now, this party, the Democratic Party, does not recognize a Palestinian state. They say that there should be a two-state solution, but they are not actually recognizing. Do you think it's important that the party recognizes a Palestinian state?
I mean, Netanyahu and his far-right extremist regime have told us and made clear time and time again that they have no interest in a separate Palestinian state.
So how does our government here continue to talk about two states when Netanyahu says absolutely not? Does it seem like kind of just lip service? Or?
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating. I think it's this dichotomy, this false dichotomy that they have presented, that you're either pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. And I'm Jewish. I have friends in Israel. I have deep ties to that land, and I believe that everyone living on that land should be treated as equals. I am pro-human being, and Netanyahu and his far-right regime they're not pro-Israeli. They do not have the Israelis' best interests. We had a ceasefire is the only way to bring the hostages back home. Right. In November, they had the temporary ceasefire, and 105 hostages were released. Military action has only freed 7 and has accidentally killed 3 hostages.
Right. And when you look what's happening there, do you think, let me back up. You said you're Jewish, and the perspective that you have, do you think majority of Jewish Americans share your perspective, or do they share the other perspective that Israel needs more weapons and you need to eliminate the opposition and not recognize Palestine? How popular are your views among the Jewish American community, do you think?
Unfortunately, at this time, I am in the minority. And one of my friends told me that Palestinians are indoctrinated to hate Jews. And I told her, no, Jews are indoctrinated to believe that Palestinians are indoctrinated to hate Jews. So yesterday at the press conference Uncommitted had, there was a panel of doctors in Gaza. And
you're talking at the Democratic Convention here in Chicago.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And there was a doctor who had said that he has seen several instances where a child has been shot in the head and then shot in the chest. He said, how can someone do that to a child? And over 16,000 children have been killed in Gaza. And it's because Jews in Israel have been raised to believe that, if they don't, that this child will eventually become someone who will want to hurt them and their family. They see it as an us versus them situation. And it's a lot of Jews in Israel have never met a Palestinian before. And I think it's what allows them to dehumanize other people.
So what are you trying to accomplish here at the Democratic Convention as a Jewish American Democrat, delegate, voter, activist?
Yeah, so I want Vice President Harris to be my president. And I also want her to support universal human rights, which is a core democratic value. And I want our party to come together and say that never again means never again for anyone.
Do you think that's where they're at now?
I think it's really important for people to understand that continuing to send bombs to Netanyahu and his far-right extremist regime using American taxpayer dollars does not benefit Americans. It certainly does not benefit the Palestinians, and it does not benefit the Israelis. This is not how you keep Israelis safe.
What will you do in November if Harris continues the policies of Biden, does not promise to stop sending bombs and weapons to Israel, and just continues the status quo?
Well, I believe that, Harris, polls are coming out saying that if Vice President Biden and Vice President Harris stop sending bombs to Netanyahu to kill innocent civilians in Gaza, that her poll numbers will go up, that it will reinvigorate a lot of people who, especially young voters, who want to see Vice President Harris as our president and to stand up for universal human rights.
So you're hoping she'll change course. But if she doesn't, it could be detrimental to her election.
It could be detrimental to her election. I feel like a lot of people have started to lose hope in the morality of our Democratic Party.
Do you think that that's contributed to Biden's popularity going down and eventually had to exit his position on Gaza?
Yeah, based on polling, it appears that is the case.
Right. And right now she hasn't, people are excited about Harris because she's not Biden, but she hasn't really spoken about what her real position is when it comes to Gaza. Okay, well, I've been speaking to Tamara Erickson. She's wearing a pin that says Democrats for Palestinian Rights, but she's Jewish American activist who's calling to stop arming Israel because it's actually bad for Jews and Israelis.
Absolutely.
And for peace.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks for being with us. And good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you're a hard woman to track down.
Yeah, it's been a busy week.
By the way, I'm joined now with Nadia Ahmed at the Democratic Convention in Chicago. It's Wednesday evening, and Nadia, you're a DNC member as well as a delegate to the convention from Florida. Where are you based in Florida?
I'm based in Orlando, Florida, and Central Florida.
And so tell me, it's been hard to track you down. What have you been busy doing? You're all over the news.
Yeah, it was really astounding because on the first day of the DNC convention, we wanted to really elevate the issue of Palestine, and we felt the best way to do that was to demonstrate with a sign. So Issam Berea from Connecticut, who was a delegate from there, and Liana Sharon, who was from Michigan as another DNC member, we had a sign and we unfurled it during President Joe Biden's address. And as we unfurled it, I thought when they would just take the sign away at some point, there would be some photos that would be taken of it, and just to kind of show this is the issue. But
you weren't being disruptive. You just basically had a banner and you're holding it up.
Yeah, we took out the banner and we held it up, and that was really the extent of the action. But then what happened was, instead of taking away the sign, members of the event staff started handing out more "We Love Joe Biden" signs to cover up the sign, and they also passed them to the back of on the box office seat section behind us to a group. And then those people also took those signs and they tried to snatch away our sign. They were successful. But then we were able to kind of get our sign back. And then what they did is the people who were in the box office, they started hitting me on the back of the head.
Okay, before you get to that, we're going to talk more specifically, but just to give kind of for our listeners to describe for them the convention center or where the convention is taking place. This is at the United Center. So it's basically, imagine a basketball arena. This is actually the same place where the Chicago Bulls play. And the way that it's set up, it's kind of like a concert setup. There's a stage in the front, and delegates from all the different states are laid out in different sections. Florida happens to be all the way in the back, furthest away from the stage.
Yeah.
And you were sitting in the last row of the Florida delegation, correct?
Right. We were in the last row because we felt that would be a place to prevent our action from being detected.
Because you already were kind of expecting that there'll be some resistance or some people will try to stop you, right?
Right. So we felt that if we had our backs to the wall, then there would be less resistance from that.
What did your banner say?
Our banner said, "Stop arming Israel."
And how big was it?
The banner was the size of a bedsheet cut in half.
Okay. So this is a banner and it says "Stop Arming Israel." You start raising it a few minutes after Biden starts. Why did you pick the Biden speech?
Because President Biden has the ability to stop all of this with the phone call. He can literally pick up the phone and stop all of this violence at any moment. Instead, what he has chosen to do is ignore this. He's fallen on his sword for Israel. He's given up his own renomination as president. He's been forced out to resign, and so it's not really a moment to thank him for all of his service, because what he has done is he's really put the party's viability in jeopardy over this issue.
What do you mean he found his sword because of Gaza? Do you think that Gaza was a major decision or issue that caused his popularity to go down and for him to actually end up exiting?
Yeah, 80% of American Muslims, it's a really super important issue to them. But even among the general public, the number of people that want or in favor of having an end to the violence, to have a permanent and immediate ceasefire, is very, very critical. And so I think it's important to recognize why we chose him, specifically because he has the decision-making capacity to be able to do that. And we don't need to move the needle on this issue. We need like a tectonic seismic shift. And we need to really recognize also that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not interested in having the Democratic Party win, because having this war, having this violence really serves his interest. And so what he would like to do is just allow it to continue and ignore it.
So you're basically back to your action. It's late. You take out the banner. You and your colleagues, one who actually used to be Jewish and is against the genocide. And there's also another immigrant, Arab American, that is a delegate. So all three of you raise it, and then you said basically the staff, it's almost like they were prepared for you, or they started distributing more of these placards to try to block the visibility?
Yeah, because they'd been handing out signs all evening. They sent them out when Joe Biden came to the stage. They also sent them out for labor unions. And so what was interesting is that they just started sending out these vertical "Thank you, Joe" signs. And it was really meant to have a good choreographed effect. But instead, these long vertical signs, they instead used them to hide the sign that we had to cover it up.
It seemed like they added additional signs. The videos that I saw, they handed out additional signs, and they kept instructing the delegates to block the sign with their placards, their banner.
Yeah, and when we had seen it, we were just really concerned about what was happening, and so we really tried to just hold up the sign. Like, our goal was, we're just going to hold up the sign as long as we can, and that will be the end of it.
And the video that I saw, there are some people behind you in what would be described, I guess, these box suites. So when you were like in a basketball arena or a concert, there are special suites, usually for VIPs. And some people that were there, that were behind, and there's some sort of glass partition or some sort of partition. They reached over and they were trying to snatch the sign away, right?
Yeah, and so the box suite that belonged to us from behind was one that belonged to the Laborers International Union of North America. And so the guests in that box suite were representatives of that.
So that box suite were for some VIPs from this labor union.
Yes.
Now, this labor union specifically, I'm looking at the lanyard that you're wearing around your shirt, and they seem to be like an official sponsor of the whole convention. I see their name on the lanyard with DNC 2024, LIUNA. Is that the same organization?
Yeah, that's the same organization. And the other slogan that it says is "Feel the Power."
Feel the power. So what happened?
So the "Feel the Power" really means like feel the violence of the power, and so they're really upset by the action, and they just don't want to have political speech.
So people in that box suite from this labor union started trying to snatch the banner away from your hands, and when you didn't let go, what else did they do?
So first, when they tried to grab it, but our goal was just hold on tight, like that was our only directive amongst ourselves. And then we didn't. They snatched it at some point, and then when they snatched it, like they grabbed it, like I just like held onto it tight, but they did it with such force, like I fell like down, and then I had to like stand back up really quickly to kind of hold on to the sign.
But before that, I saw at some point they were using the long placards, because these placards that say "We love you, Joe" are pretty long. They're like, seems like 4 or 5 feet.
Right.
And they were reaching over and then hitting some of you on top of the head. Were you hit by a placard?
Yeah, I just remember because I couldn't see in front of me because the sign was so huge. I just saw them hitting me on my head.
And you're a visibly Muslim woman. You wear a headscarf, a hijab, so they know they're actually, this is a woman, and you're a Muslim, you're a minority.
Right, yeah. I think it was really the fact that I think what they didn't like was the sign. They also didn't like the hijab, and so that was really what they were also targeting.
So how do you feel that the party, the Democratic Party, is supposed to be a big tent party that's supposed to be inclusive of all these different voices, responded this way with just simply putting up a banner?
Well, I'm part of the Democratic Party, whether they like me or not, and they need me more than I need them. And so
what do you mean by that?
In the sense that it's important for them to engage with our communities, and if they don't want to do that, they also need to recognize that elections have consequences. They also need to recognize as well that all votes have to be earned.
So specifically Monday night, when Joe Biden was speaking, he invoked and he spoke about January 6th.
Correct.
And it might have even been at the same time that they were, some of these delegates or people that were in the box suite behind you were hitting you or attacking.
Right.
And he spoke up about that political violence has no place in America.
Right.
Do you see the kind of hypocrisy, like while saying that, people within the party are actually using political violence to silence you?
Well, Florida is kind of the gateway to fascism. And so what was really interesting was that people from the Florida delegation were glad to be able to hand out these signs to each other to block it. And I thought there's also interesting as well as the people who were standing in front of us, a number of them are African American, and they didn't like the fact that we had the signs up, but they were not hitting us on the head with the signs. But the people behind us, who were primarily white men, felt it was okay to hit me on the head with the signs.
So where do you go from here? You're demanding stop the arms, stop arming Israel. This was the response that you got. Do you think that there's hope within the party for change of the policy?
I think that the moment demands that there is a change in the policy. I mean, how many more people are going to die? Is there like a kill number? We're at 200,000 people who have died. And how many more people have to die? Are we going to go forward with just completely annihilating 2 million people in the region? And how much longer is this going to go on? Like, I don't see like a change in policy, and we can't just inch towards change.
What happened to the people that attacked you and hit you on top of the head?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
So were their credentials pulled? Are they still participating?
I don't know, but I haven't heard of any negative consequences to their
Are you taking any further steps legally or any type of legal action for
Yes,
your rights?
I had filed criminal charges this morning. We had filed charges both for battery and theft of personal property because they stole our sign.
And, okay, well, have you heard, who did you file that with?
We filed the charges against Brent Booker, who's the president of the labor union, and Michael Hellstrom, who is the vice president.
Were they in the box suite when this happened?
Yeah, they were in the box suite, and we identified them based off of the video footage. And the labor union's name is the Laborers International Union of North America. And what they say is that they're trying to do is the Build America Union, 500,000 strong, fighting for better wages and benefits, safer job sites, and greater opportunity. They're essentially a construction workers union.
Well, thank you for time, Nadia, and stay safe. And okay, so we're outside the United Center. It's around 9 o'clock p.m. President Clinton just got done speaking, so did Nancy Pelosi. And right now, I see some of the pro-Palestinian delegates are congregating outside the United Center, but in an area that's still within the perimeter. So directly outside the doors, this is a security area, and you have to have a delegate pass to get into this area. Now, what's going on here, Helen?
Yeah, so earlier today we learned that some family members of an Israeli hostage were going to speak on the stage, and we had a request to get a Palestinian American or pro-ceasefire voice on this stage to represent, the uncommitted movement, as well as the fact that the Democratic Party emphasizes the value of both Israeli and Palestinian lives. We wanted that representation. We did not receive that representation, and right now our uncommitted delegates are sitting down and waiting to hear back from the party in hopes that we will receive a Palestinian or ceasefire voice on the stage tonight.
So as we're talking, I'm seeing more and more police officers congregating in this area, kind of around. I see Secret Service people,
yes, sir,
and FBI, a lot of people with badges, some with uniforms, some with suits, coming around a group of about maybe 20, 30 people. There's some media there, and they're sitting down. Why are these uncommitted delegates sitting down?
They are waiting to hear from a call from the party.
So they're doing some sort of sit-in until they get the phone call?
That's my understanding, something like that.
Yeah, and I heard him basically say that we deserve the right to speak from the stage, and our phone is open. I'm waiting for the call.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Someone said a really beautiful quote earlier, and I'm going to butcher it, but pretty much everyone deserves the right to tell their own story. And if, the family of Israeli hostage gets to speak, why is that the only side of this story being told? There's a lot more to that than only that, although that is still important. The Palestinian voices deserve representation as well.
And that's it for today's episode of True Talk on WMNF. As we've heard, the fight for justice and real policy change on Palestine continues both inside and outside the Democratic Party. Last week, Kamala Harris made it clear in her acceptance speech that she will always stand with Israel's right to defend itself. She called for a ceasefire, but in the context of releasing hostages, and pointedly emphasized that it was Hamas who attacked Israel on October 7th, and repeated debunked allegations of sexual assault by Hamas for which there's no evidence. However, when speaking about the ongoing suffering in Gaza, she omitted and avoided naming Israel as the one causing that suffering. This omission and the way she spoke about the military has led some observers to note that Kamala Harris doesn't just echo Joe Biden's stance on this issue, but in some ways comes across even more hawkish. The DNC ended last week without Palestinians being able to tell their stories from the stage, leaving many ceasefire delegates questioning whether the party is truly living up to its stated principles and its claim of being a big tent. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to join us next week for more conversations that matter. Until then, I'm Ahmed Bedier, and this has been True Talk on WMNF Tampa. Have a great weekend.
WMNF Tampa.